champagne tasted wrong. Not wrong enough to spit out. Not wrong enough to cause a scene in front of 300 of Seoul's most powerful people. Just wrong. A faint bitterness buried beneath the sweetness. There, and then gone almost before she could name it. Charisse Williams set the crystal flute carefully down on the nearest high-top table and stood a little straighter. She told herself she was imagining things. She was very good at that. 5 years of marriage to one of the most powerful men in South Korea had made her exceptionally good at it. The Grand Hyatt ballroom glittered around her like something from a dream that knew it was being watched. 300 candles burning in crystal holders. Chandeliers were so bright, they swallowed every shadow hole. The air is thick with Dior perfume and white lilies and the low, overlapping music of Korean and English and the particular sound of money confirming itself in every corner of the room. Around her, midnight blue silk, tailored charcoal suits, flashbulbs strobing like small lightning strikes, and Charisse, in gold, the only black woman in the building, standing in the center of it all like she always had. Like she belonged. Like belonging had never once cost her anything. She cataloged the room the way Gloria had taught her. Read every micro-expression, every pause before the word beautiful, every too-wide smile from a man whose company did business with her husband. She had learned to live precisely in the gap between what people showed and what they actually meant. Survival, dressed as social grace. Then she saw him. Do-yoon stood across the ballroom, tall, impeccable, surrounded. He was laughing, head slightly back, one hand raised mid-gesture. Laughing at something she hadn't said, to someone whose back was turned, in a way she hadn't seen him laugh at home in many months. She looked away. That was when the woman in red appeared.
Slim.
Korean. Sharp-eyed, with a smile that deployed every correct muscle and none of the warmth. She materialized from the crowd with a fresh champagne flute extended, tilting her head with practiced softness. You look tired, Yoonhee. Let me take you somewhere quiet. Charisse woke up 12 hours later. Hotel ceiling. Head splitting. The room was wrong in ways she couldn't name. She didn't know what had been taken from her. Not yet. If you've ever loved someone who is quietly working against you, this story will be different. Drop a comment. Tell us where you're watching from.
Stay close.
Because what Charisse discovers next. Nobody saw it coming. Not even her. Before Seoul, there was Columbus. East Side. A 2-bedroom house where the radiator knocked all winter and the porch cracked every spring, but the kitchen always smelled like something good because Gloria Williams believed a warm kitchen was the closest possible thing to an argument against despair. Gloria worked double hospital shifts, 12 hours in, 12 hours out, compression socks and bad coffee, never complaining where Charisse could hear it. She raised her daughter on 2 things, the Bible and the bone-deep conviction that a black woman's softness was not a weakness. It was a weapon, the kind that cuts before they ever see the blade. Charisse took the lessons seriously. At 14, she was mixing lip glosses in the bathroom, baby oil, Vaseline, drugstore shimmer, lining them up on the toilet tank like a tiny laboratory of ambition. At 16, she burned her fingers on a wax melter trying to create her first tinted balm and kept going anyway because the color she was chasing didn't exist on any shelf she'd ever seen. By 23, Aurum Beauty had a website. By 26, it had 2 million customers and a foundation line called Built for Melanin 47 Shades. Every one formulated for the woman handed the wrong color her whole life and quietly told to make it work. Charisse's deepest desire had always been the same one, to be chosen completely, not despite who she was because of it. The ambition, the softness, the voice that got louder when she felt unseen. Her deepest fear, the one she only told Tasha at 2 a.m., that she would always be the woman people admired from a distance but never stayed for. Then Korea came looking. Shin Grand wanted a partnership. She flew over prepared for skepticism and got it. 8 executives watching her the way people watch something unexpected walk through the door. Then Do-yoon walked in, 20 minutes late, in a charcoal suit, and said without any preamble, "Your velvet mahogany shade. My mother wore it at my father's funeral." She said it was the only product that made her feel beautiful when she felt least deserving of it. Charisse had made that shade for Gloria. For seconds passed across that conference table. Every person in the room felt the specific electricity of two people recognizing something in each other they hadn't come looking for. She called Tasha from the hotel room that night. Charisse, he's worth $3 billion. And Charisse said, I know. That's not why. Tasha had known her since 7th grade. She understood. Duyun came to Columbus 3 months later, sat at Gloria's kitchen table, ate an entire plate of overcooked peach cobbler without a single complaint, because he was a man who understood that certain gestures cost more than they appear. Gloria told Charisse afterward, a man who eats bad food and pretends it's wonderful is a man trying to make you comfortable. That counts for something. He proposed on the Han River Bridge at 2 a.m., not in a velvet box, just the ring held between 2 fingers, like something too important for packaging. He cried at their wedding. The Korean press didn't believe the photographs. Charisse believed every moment. She had been there. That was 5 years ago. Somewhere inside those 5 years, someone had been watching. Always nearby. Always helpful. Always just at the edge of Charisse's peripheral vision at every Shin Empire event. The coordinator with a careful smile and the eyes that quietly counted everything. Charisse had never thought to count back. She took the test because she was out of other explanations. 3 days after the gala, Charisse stood in her Seoul bathroom in the gray morning light, holding a pregnancy test the way someone holds something they don't expect to mean anything. She had been nauseous for 2 weeks. She had blamed the stress of running a company from 11 time zones away. She had blamed jet lag, bad sleep, a marriage that lately felt like it was made of very expensive, very fragile glass. She had not once considered this. She set the test on the marble counter, went to answer a text from her COO about the Tokyo distribution deal, came back. I looked down. I looked away. I looked back, picked it up, and held it 3 centimeters from her face. Pregnant. She stood completely still for 11 seconds. Then she called Tasha. Tasha was in Columbus eating cereal at 7 a.m., answering on the second ring. Hello, and Charisse said in a voice that was simultaneously calm and completely unraveling. Tasha.
I'm pregnant.
A silence. Then the distinct sound of a cereal bowl hitting linoleum. Then screaming loud enough for the neighbor to knock on Tasha's wall. Then both of them were crying and laughing on the phone for 11 minutes until Charisse's housekeeper knocked gently on the bathroom door.
Mom?
You've been in there for almost 20 minutes. I'm fine, Mrs. Park. Should I make tea? I know, Mrs. Park. A considered pause. Then, should I make tea? Charisse pressed her hand over her mouth to stop the laugh from becoming something else. Then Tasha said, okay.
Wait.
That champagne at the gala. You said it tasted weird. The laughter stopped. Charisse sat on the edge of the bathtub. She replayed it slowly. The crystal flute extended by a slim, certain hand. The smile that used the right muscles. And the thing she had filed under nothing. The half-second glance Sora's eyes had dropped toward Charisse's stomach before sliding politely away. So brief. So deliberate. She filed it back out. That afternoon, she went to a private clinic across the city. Told no one. The doctor confirmed, 6 weeks, heartbeat strong, the baby entirely healthy. The baby she hadn't known she was carrying had survived something she didn't yet fully understand. She made a second call to her doctor's contact at a private toxicology lab. The morning after the gala, before she understood anything at all, Charisse had given a blood sample. Not because she knew. Because she was thorough by nature, by training, by the deep Ohio instinct that said, document everything, even when you don't know why. For days, she cooked Duyun's favorite meals. She attended a company dinner with his arm, gold earrings, an easy smile, kissed his cheek in front of the cameras. On the 4th morning, the results arrived by encrypted email. There had been something in her blood. Charisse read the report twice, set it face down on the desk, poured a glass of water, and stood at the window, looking at Seoul spread out below her. The city she had loved, the city that had just tried to take something from her. She was not going to fall apart. She was not going to scream. She was going to do what Gloria raised her to do.
Plan.
Gather. And when the time came, burn it all down cleanly. The body knows before the mind is ready to admit it. She picked up her phone and made one call. I need the best private investigator in Seoul.
Today.
His name was Kwon Dae-sung, and he was the least impressive-looking man Charisse had ever hired. He showed up to their first meeting in a brown jacket so unremarkable it seemed chosen specifically so the human eye would slide right past him. He ate convenience store kimbap during their entire conversation and didn't offer an apology for it. He had spent 11 years as an NIS intelligence officer and another 8 doing private work for people who needed things found with absolute discretion and zero theatrics. He was, she was told, the best in Seoul. His updates arrived every Tuesday via encrypted message. Always short. Always devastating. The first read: Target maintains second mobile device. Pink case. Contacts app shows. Doohyun saved as my destiny. Herself saved as my future. Charisse stared at the screen for a long time. Then she scrolled down to the last line. You are saved as the problem. She read that twice. Then she typed back. Upgrade my budget. Find everything. She kept living her other life in parallel, the way a surgeon keeps a steady hand. She showed up at company dinners on Doohyun's arm in silk gowns, laughing at the right moments, answering questions about Aurum Beauty's Asian expansion with genuine enthusiasm. She was brilliant at this, the performance of a woman with nothing to hide, because she had learned that the most dangerous thing you could do was let them see you preparing. Doohyun noticed something had shifted. He just read it wrong. He thought she was withdrawing, becoming cold. One evening at dinner, he reached across the table and took her hand without saying anything, a gesture so familiar it almost broke something in her chest. She let him hold it. She smiled. Inside, she was counting days like a woman counting steps to a door. The red herring arrived on a Wednesday. She found a receipt in his jacket pocket, a jewelry store in Apgujeong, the kind where a single item costs more than most people's rent. She spent 48 brutal hours, convinced it was for Sora. She assembled the story in her head, fully, painfully, and then Mr. Kwon confirmed the truth. It was for Charisse. An anniversary gift. The anniversary Doohyun had then forgotten, and the gift had never been given. She folded the receipt and put it back exactly where she found it. It didn't change anything, but it complicated the grief. Meanwhile, Sora grew bolder. She texted Doohyun with increasing frequency, positioned herself at every Shin Empire function, made herself indispensable in ways that looked professional to everyone except a woman who was paying very close attention. Mr. Kwon's files thicken every week. Pharmacy's CCTV, a slim figure in a dark coat paying in cash. Text exchanges with a university chemist that read like a consultation. 7 voice notes saved on the pink phone, recorded and sent to no one, just Sora talking to herself in the dark. Then the last one. Charisse sat alone in her office and listened to the translation through her earphone. Sora's voice, certain and unrepentant. She was going to have his child, and then he'd never leave. So I fixed it. Charisse's hands shook. Not from fear, from the specific tremor of a confirmed truth landing in a body that had suspected it for weeks. She set the phone down. I looked at the Seoul skyline. Then she called attorney Park Ji-yoon. Get ready, she said. We're moving. Patience is not surrender. In the right hands, it is the sharpest weapon there is. Mr. Kwon arrived at 9 p.m. with a brown envelope thick enough to convict someone. Charisse cleared her desk and he laid everything out without ceremony, the way a man lays out tools, not revelations. Purchase records. CCTV stills, time-stamped and labeled. A chemical analysis report with 2 highlighted sections. Printed transcripts of 340 text messages between Sora and a former university contact who held a postgraduate degree in pharmaceutical chemistry. 7 voice notes. And a supplementary file, thin, catastrophic, that Mr. Kwon placed to the side and let her reach for in her own time. She was not ready. She read it anyway. This was not a crime of passion. That was the first thing Charisse understood, working through the pages the way she had always processed difficult information all the way through, never around it. Sora had been researching for months before the gala. The substance was sourced carefully, paid for in cash, calibrated to terminate an early pregnancy without leaving obvious cause. Someone had sat with this plan long enough to make it precise and deliberate. She turned to the supplementary file. Mr. Kwon had found intercepted messages. Not from Sora to Doohyun, from Charisse to Doohyun. Texts she had written and sent over 18 months that had simply never arrived. A subtle redirect rerouted her messages to a deleted folder on a server she didn't manage. Invitations to events she'd been told Do-yoon couldn't attend, a charity gala, a company anniversary dinner, a weekend in Jeju she'd heard about secondhand and assumed she hadn't been included in. She had attended none because nobody told her. Do-yoon attended all of them, Sora beside him, operating on the assumption that Charisse had chosen not to respond. He had started to believe she was pulling away from the marriage. Sora had not poisoned it with one act. She had done it the way termites work, invisibly, one small thing at a time, until the structure no longer held its weight. Charisse set the file down. She sat without moving. The grief was precise and particular. Not grief for the marriage she'd had, grief for the version she had believed she had. The real thing had been quietly replaced, message by message, with something constructed entirely by someone else. She had been living inside a counterfeit for over a year and never seen the seams. She looked at her stomach. The smallest curve. The heartbeat on a clinic screen 11 days ago. The baby that survived because she put a champagne glass down. Because her body knew before her mind admitted it. She heard Gloria's voice, clear, across 11 time zones. A black woman's softness is not a weakness. It is a weapon they will never see coming.
She closed the dossier.
Picked up her phone. Fly to Seoul. When? Yesterday, L. Tasha didn't ask why. She asked which airline had the earliest morning departure, because she understood when a question was already answered, and what was needed now was simply to move. Charisse put the phone down and looked at the assembled truth of her own life spread across the desk. This was no longer the story of a woman who had been wronged. This was the story of a woman who knew exactly what had been done, exactly who had done it, and precisely what was going to happen next. The truth doesn't need your help to exist. It only needs you to be brave enough to read it all the way to the end.
Do-yoon was in Busan.
Tasha was asleep down the hall in the guest room. The apartment had never felt quite so large. Charisse sat on the floor in front of the window at 2 a.m., still in her day clothes, one hand resting gently on her stomach. Below her, Seoul stretched in every direction, 1,000 lit windows, the Han River cutting through the dark like something that had always known where it was going. Somewhere in that distance was the bridge. The one with the green railing where a man had kneeled with a ring he hadn't put in a velvet box because he said it was too important for packaging. She let herself look at it for a long moment. Then she let herself grieve fully, honestly, without the performance of strength she had been holding up for weeks. She let the memories come in whatever order they chose. The boardroom. The 4 seconds across a conference table that changed everything. Do-yoon at Gloria's kitchen table eating bad peach cobbler with the focused dedication of a man who understood what the gesture meant, even when his face gave him completely away. His voice at 2 a.m. on that bridge. I don't know how to say this the right way, so I'm just going to say it. The wedding. The way he cried at the altar. The early mornings in this apartment, their first year in Seoul, when they were still learning from each other, arguing about nothing, laughing about the same thing 10 minutes later, figuring out the specific geometry of 2 very different lives becoming one. That had been real. She needed to hold on to that clearly. The love had been real. The beginning had been real. What had been manufactured was not the feeling itself. What had been manufactured was the ending. That distinction mattered to her. She wasn't entirely sure why, but it did. She looked down at her stomach. You almost weren't here, she said quietly, to the dark, to the small curve already beginning to feel like a person with a personality. I need you to know that. And I need you to know that I would have set this entire city on fire for you. She let herself ask the honest question, the one she had been keeping at arm's length. Was there any version of this where she stayed? Any version where the marriage survived what had been done to it? She held it without flinching.
No.
Not because she stopped loving him. She probably wouldn't stop for a long time and was honest enough to know it. But love was not a sufficient answer to the question of what you would allow to be done to you. Love was not a reason to rebuild on a foundation someone had deliberately salted. She knew what she was worth. Gloria had spent 31 years making absolutely certain of it. She got up, found a pen, found paper. She wrote a letter to her mother she couldn't send. Not yet, maybe never. She wrote about champagne.
The test. The file.
The bridge is visible through the glass. She wrote about what she was going to do in the morning, and why she was not afraid, and why fear wouldn't have changed anything anyway. She folded it twice, slid it into the pocket of the black coat on the chair, set her alarm for 6 a.m., and slept. Grief and strength are not opposites. Sometimes grief is exactly what strength looks like when it allows itself to be fully honest. The alarm went off at 6 a.m. and Charisse was already awake. She had been awake for 20 minutes, lying in the dark with her eyes open, thinking about nothing in particular, which was how she knew she was ready. When the mind goes quiet before something difficult, it is not emptiness. It is the body clearing the runway. She dressed with deliberate care. Not for Duyun. Not for cameras or company dinners or the specific performance of a woman who needed to be perceived a certain way. For herself. She put on the tailored black coat last, settled it across her shoulders, and stood in front of the mirror for a long moment. She looked back at herself without apology. She recognized the woman completely. Tasha was in the kitchen when she came out, standing at the counter in pajamas with a mug, clearly having woken the moment she heard footsteps. She took in the coat. The 3 labeled file folders on the kitchen table, the sealed evidence bag beside them, empty and waiting. She stood very still for 5 full seconds. "Do you need me to come?" "No," Charisse said. "Stay on the phone." Tasha nodded once. She didn't say be careful, because she understood that careful was already built into everything Charisse had done for the past 6 weeks. She just said, "I'll be in the car outside." Mr. Kwan was waiting at the curb at 6:45. He drove without speaking, which was one of the things Charisse had come to appreciate about him. Some people fill silence out of discomfort. Mr. Kwan filled it with nothing at all, which meant the silence in the car was entirely hers, to think in or not. She called Attorney Park Ji-yoon at 6:52. "Police in 30 minutes. Dossier already submitted. I'm collecting the final piece." Park Ji-yoon's voice was the voice of a woman who had never lost a case she believed in. "Be careful." "I always am." She put the phone away and looked out the window at Seoul in the early morning. The city waking up, vendors rolling out carts, a street sweeper moving slowly along the curb, the ordinary beautiful machinery of a city that didn't know what was about to happen inside one of its buildings. The elevator in Sora's building was mirrored on 3 sides. Charisse watched herself ride up to the 14th floor. She did not feel rage. She had expected to feel rage by now, and she had been waiting for it to arrive, and it simply hadn't. What she felt instead was clarity. She was not going up here to punish Sora. She was going up here to take back what was hers. The evidence. The last word. The narrative of her own life, which had been edited without her permission for long enough. She thought of the name she had already chosen. Amara. She had decided it the same night she heard the heartbeat on the clinic screen, certain and immediate, the way the important decisions always come. Amara.it means grace. She thought of Gloria in the kitchen on a Tuesday afternoon in Columbus, Ohio, cutting peach cobbler, turning to say something over her shoulder that sounded like ordinary wisdom and landed like armor. Your softness is a weapon, the kind that cuts before they see the blade. The elevator doors opened. She walked down the hallway to apartment 1403. She knocked. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is deciding that what you are protecting matters more than anything you might be afraid of. The door opened. Sora stood in a silk robe, hair loose, eyes not quite focused, the expression of someone interrupted between sleep and morning. She was expecting a delivery. Her hand was already reaching for the handle to hold the door halfway open in that polite, impatient way. She found Charisse instead. The color left her face so completely and so fast it was almost clinical to observe. "Good morning," Charisse said in Korean, clean and unhurried, the Korean she had been quietly practicing for 5 years and never deployed quite like this. For 2 seconds, Sora did nothing. Then she lunged. Not toward Charisse, toward the door, trying to slam it shut, the panicked reflex of someone whose carefully constructed world has just walked through their doorway wearing a black coat and an expression of absolute calm. Charisse caught her by the collar. What followed was 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Efficient. The product of 8 years of 5 a.m. kickboxing, 3 older brothers from East Columbus who taught her very young that softness and strength were never mutually exclusive, and the specific focused energy of a woman protecting something that had almost been taken from her without her knowledge. Sora's wig did not survive. Her dignity did not survive. Her second phone, the pink one, was removed from her robe pocket with the precision of a woman who had planned this exact moment and placed carefully into the evidence bag Charisse had brought herself. When the police arrived, called 30 minutes earlier, the complete dossier already filed in their system, Kim Sora was on the hallway floor with both hands pressed over her face, crying in a way designed to look like victimhood. It looked exactly like what it was. Guilt. She was arrested. Charisse straightened her coat and walked out into the Seoul morning. She called Tasha before she reached the curb. "It's done, girl. I have been in this car for 40 minutes. Are you okay? Is the baby okay?" Charisse Amara Williams. Charisse laughed. The real kind. The kind that starts deep in the stomach and moves upward without asking permission. The first genuine laugh in months. "Come get me." Buldak noodles. 6 glasses of orange juice. Do-yoon came home to a phone full of missed calls, an apartment that felt different in a way he couldn't name, and his wife seated calmly at the dining table with a manila folder in the center of it. He sat down. He read. His hands began to shake on page 3. By page 7, the transcript of Sora's voice note. "So, I fixed it," he set it down and pressed both palms flat against the table like a man trying to stop the room from tilting. "Charisse." "Not yet," she said quietly. She told him about the pregnancy. She watched this armored, private man come apart genuinely, without performance. She felt the grief of how much that would have meant 6 months ago. She let herself feel it. And then she set it down. "You let her close enough to hurt me," she said clearly. "I know exactly what I'm worth. And this isn't it." He begged. She listened. She stood up, handed him the tissue box because she was raised right, even here, picked up her coat and walked to the door. She did not look back. Not once. Kim Sora was convicted on all charges. For years. Every single day served. Nobody sent flowers. Justice is not revenge. Revenge is emotional. Justice is prepared. 8 months later, Charisse was back in Columbus eating peach cobbler at her mother's kitchen table. She came home the way she always did, through the back door, without calling ahead. Amara was asleep in the next room in a crib Gloria had purchased the very day she heard the name. Outside, November was gray and cold and unapologetic about it. Inside, warm light, cinnamon, the particular piece of a place that had known her before the world got complicated. She told Gloria the real story, not the version from the Korean Business Weekly interview, the true one. The champagne, the bathroom floor, the toxicology report, the pink phone, and what was saved under her name. The hallway, the evidence bag she had brought herself. Gloria sat with her hands folded and listened without interrupting, which for Gloria was close to a supernatural act. When Charisse finished, Gloria cut a second piece of cobbler and set it quietly in front of her, then sat back down. "That man ate my cobbler and didn't complain once." A pause. "I still think he loves you."
"Mama."
"I didn't say go back." Her voice was firm, warm, and completely clear. "I said he loves you. Those are 2 different things. Love without respect is just a feeling. You deserve the whole thing." From the other side of the table, where Tasha had been sitting in complete uncharacteristic silence, on her 3rd piece of cobbler, she looked up. "Are we just not going to talk about the evidence bag?" Gloria turned. "You did what?" "Mrs. Williams," Tasha said, with considerable gravity. She was prepared. And then all 3 of them were laughing, the real kind, the full-body kind, the kind you earn. From the next room, Amara woke up, decided the noise sounded good, and joined in. Charisse went and got her. Stood in the kitchen doorway with her daughter against her chest, and felt something settle deep and quiet inside. Not the end of grief, not the absence of love for what she'd lost, but something steadier than both. The peace of a woman who knows exactly who she is and no longer waits for anyone's permission to be it. Aurum Beauty's Seoul flagship opened 3 months after the divorce. Tokyo followed. Aurum Medical launched that spring, fastest growing K-beauty line by a non-Korean founder in the industry's history. Do-yoon issued a public apology. At Amara's first birthday, he stood at the edge of the room holding a gift, not trying to be more than he had earned. Sora served every day of her 4 years. And Charisse was just Williams again.
No hyphen. No asterisk.
The name she was born with. Always enough. She came for a business deal. She stayed for love. She left with herself. You are not the woman they tried to erase. You are who survived the erasing. And that is the most powerful thing you can ever be.